back to another DeFi Raiders AMA. My name is Relentless. Today we're talking to Roman from Savvy DeFi, the project building a decentralized lending protocol empowering crypto users to unlock their liquidity with non-liquidating, auto-repaying lines of credit. So welcome. Thanks for joining us. Would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself, give a little bit of your background, what led you to founding Savvy?
Yeah, thank you so much, Relentless. My name is Roman. I like to call myself a recovering ex-banker. I came into crypto. Well, I actually came into banking because of crypto. So unlike most people that got into the space, I started in TradFi because I wanted to be here eventually, but I didn't know enough. So in 2013, I kind of got introduced to Bitcoin when my friends were telling me about it. Laughed it off originally as magic internet money. Turns out it was like not the right decision. After reading the Bitcoin white paper a bunch of times, I decided to ape in because I realized there was something more. Got rugged pretty quickly, but didn't get deterred. Ended up staying and just learning more. And over time, hanging out with different people in different communities on different blockchains. Um, I eventually left my sales role to get into full-time banking, and I ended up working in JP Morgan at the private bank for about 3 years, which was a really interesting time that led me to DeFi because I really wanted to see how macroeconomics can be applied to open finance. And I thought this was like super interesting and very transformational. In 2020, I ended up creating a little like payment protocol with my friends on the Stellar blockchain that allowed people to use Bitcoin and Ethereum with a QR payment system. And then the merchant would end up getting USDC virtually for free and basically instantly as soon as the transaction cleared. And it was completely permissionless and essentially was a way for people to pay with crypto in the real world. So it's pretty cool. And another startup saw this and wanted to integrate the technology, and they came and kind of asked us if we would want to sell it, which we did. And from there, I just jumped in full time to crypto. I love leverage. So Savvy for me is like a really cool protocol because I had this one experience where I completely over leveraged myself and then I bridged funds to other chains. And like, long story short, I ended up getting liquidated at these money market like protocols, basically, Aave and some other ones because I couldn't bridge fast enough to pay back the debt, and it was just like really, really hurt. So I thought I had good risk management because of like my background and everything, but turns out even I was susceptible to it, and I just wanted to find a way to like still leverage my assets, like crypto, because I think it's really valuable, and even long term, it's going to be very valuable. So instead of me wanting to sell it, I'd rather borrow against it, but in a way that I don't have to like wake up at 4 a.m. to check if my health score on my loan is still okay. So then, I just got to thinking about how to do that. And eventually, I saw like a really good opportunity to bring this kind of collateralized debt protocol to Avalanche, and decided to set out and find a team that could help me build that. So got pretty lucky, found some really great developers and other, co-founders in the team that are like helping us from strategy to other things. And I think we're building something really, really special here. So it all started for me like just reading the Bitcoin white paper, though.
Yeah, very cool. I am also one of those people who thought Bitcoin was stupid. I had one of my former leaders back when I was early on in the military. I was overseas, and my boss was like, "Hey, you gotta buy this. You gotta buy this stuff. It's called Bitcoin." And this is like early 2011, right? And I'm like, what is Bitcoin? And he's like, "Oh, it's this new digital currency, blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Bro, I'm not buying that. That sounds absurd." I was like, just I already have digital money, numbers on a screen. But I thought it sounded ridiculous, and I didn't want to waste my money on it. And man, if I had just listened. But what are you gonna do? So, and then
Yeah,
I
exactly.
actually, and then I didn't pay any attention to it at all until, you know, I guess November of 2021 was when I started actually looking at crypto, and then January of last year was when I actually got into DeFi. So I imagine how far ahead I'd be if I had listened back then. But you don't know what you don't know. So,
That's true, but you're still super early, man. Like
uh,
I like we use this example like when we talk about this kind of stuff. Like for instance, we use all these really complicated you know, public keys, right? That's basically like saying like if you wanted to, use an analogy and go to google.com, you would be typing in the IP address instead of the URL.
mhm.
So, this is how early we are in like DeFi and Web3 and blockchain in general. So that tells me that you haven't missed anything. This is still really, really early.
Yeah, I agree. And kind of got in after all the DeFi summer, and now things are starting to kind of shake out in a more positive manner. I know we got a lot of things with regulation that we got to worry about, coming down later, but things are just starting to be built, and I think it's a really cool, unique time. So, which is why I'm blessed to be able to do this, to be able to talk to builders, and people give me their time to and and I get to learn so much doing this. So it's
Yeah,
so
totally.
yeah, so another opportunity here today. So kind
Yeah.
of super cool background. You're one of a couple actual former bankers that I know that came full on into DeFi, and are building things, which is unique because you're bringing that. You know what people look for in TradFi, and then you understand the space, and you're able to kind of start bridging those gaps, which I think is huge. Um, so then also on top of your experience, what other kind of experience do you guys have on the team?
Well, we actually have a really strong diverse background. A couple of our team members have successful, entrepreneurship under their belt. For instance, our lead dev, he has a very successful IT company that manages, thousands of employees, and he has been a successful entrepreneur. We have project managers that have had, projects working with big companies like Facebook and Google. We have ex Microsoft and ex Stripe employees and developers on the team. People with like just a lot of real world experience with and really kind of very passionate and dedicated people that also spend a ton of time in Web3 on top of it. So the team is really, really talented, and I'm very excited about being able to find these talented people during probably a really hard time too. Because when I started searching, it was like really super bull, right? And everyone and their mother was like commanding, you know, $250,000 for a project and stuff like that. So it was like really, really interesting trying to find like talented people during a time when there was an insane demand for talent in the space. It still is, but it was like a really interesting experience. So I'm like super excited to be working with them.
Yeah, very cool. I hope someone offers me $250,000 to do something one day. I'll be a happy camper.
Just wait till next bull market, and then you can command those prices, no problem.
Yeah. Hey, $250,000 for an hour of your time, or an hour
Yeah,
of my
something like
time.
that.
No, I'm just that sounds absurd to me, but it would be crazy. So, anyways, all right, cool. Great background. I've looked into some of the people that you got on your website. You guys got a big team. Um, Most of
Thank
them are
you.
doxed, which is super cool.
Yep.
Super transparent, which a lot of people are looking for. So, all right, so let's move on from the team. Let's start talking about the
Yeah,
project. All right, so if you want to
totally.
give a quick, just give the big high level overview of what Savvy
Yeah.
DeFi is.
Of course, thank you. So, yeah, Savvy is a protocol that lets users take a non-liquidating and auto-repaying collateralized debt position, meaning your crypto can give you a loan. We provide it as an advance against your future yield, right? So you're essentially borrowing from yourself um, using a synthetic DeFi primitive. That is and if you don't know what a primitive is, or someone's listening later and doesn't know what that word means, a DeFi primitive is a token or an asset that is very composable, meaning that it can be built with, worked with, built on top of, and essentially creates an opportunity. So with Savvy, we provide people an advance against their own future yield. So if they're going to be doing any kind of DeFi yield farming, instead of them having to wait the whole year to collect all of that potential yield in the pool, they can go through Savvy in a permissionless way and basically get a credit against their DeFi strategy. And the best part is the loans are essentially interest free. And over time, the liabilities shrink because it's obviously self repaying since we do the auto harvesting and collateral optimization for the user. And in a nutshell, that's basically it.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I like the idea of not having to wake up, worry about my health factor and all those different things.
Yeah.
So a couple questions within that. Right. So obviously, market's going up, everything's going up, yields accruing faster. Um, what happens when all the numbers are going down, right? So what are the strategies that you guys are building on top of to ensure that yield is being accrued in order to pay those loans back?
It's a great question. So, well, there's a couple things that we do, right? Because of the open finance way of DeFi, we are building on top of other protocols. So their yield opportunities may change over time based on obviously, how much deposits go in, how many users are using that pool, the swaps and all these things. So if there is going to be, let's say, yield starting to kind of dry up, right? As it sometimes can happen in DeFi because liquidity is king and it's starting to flee from that strategy. We're actually building a migration tool that will allow that user to pick a new strategy with that same asset so they don't have to kind of like unwind and pay back their debt position to Savvy. They can basically just hop out of that dried up pool into a pool that has more yield, and they can keep doing that and cycling through better yield options as they come in. So there is a little bit of activity there on the user's part, but we're making it super easy so they don't have to do like a lot of transactions and basically kind of obfuscate all of it with one click or two clicks. So we're definitely working on that part too.
Okay, very cool. And then, like in your paper, right, you talked about like different AMMs and stuff. Who are you guys working with already, um, that
Yeah,
that people could look at, right, to see
totally,
what kind of yields they're looking at?
totally. So we've already started working and built on with Beefy, which is a yield harvester, and a multi-chain one at that. Really cool. Definitely tell people to check that one out. We integrated with YieldYak, which is a Avalanche favorite for yield aggregators. Very similar experience to what people would see on Beefy. So essentially, they're offering the same kind of use case. So we already built on top of them. We have integrated with Vesper as well, which is another protocol. And we will be working with all the big AMMs in the space. So we're big fans of Trader Joe. We'll be working with them. We like the cool, kind of composable pools on Kyber Swap. So we're definitely talking to them a lot. And we actually are huge fans of Platypus for their stable swap capabilities. So we've partnered with them as well. So yeah, if you want to find us, we'll be in all the big dexes and AMMs.
Very cool. And so they can use all the strategies that are already there. Do users have the ability to build their own strategy within the project or within the
So
platform?
I'm not sure if I understand what you mean by build their own, but maybe you can provide a little bit more clarity for me.
So like if they want to, so when they deposit their money, right? Do they maybe not build their own, right? Do they have that they can choose which strategy they want it to go into?
Oh yeah, of course. So
Sorry, build
the
was the wrong word there.
no, I got you. Yeah, I thought I understood what you meant, but I just wanted to clarify. Yeah, totally. We are permissionless, so every asset that we're providing, like debt for like loans, let's say USDC, whatever options we build on whatever protocol for USDC will be totally open to the user. So when they go to Savvy, they'll see like a drop down and they see all the places where they can deposit USDC and all the yield and all the other important information like TVL, health score, those things, and then they could make a decision based on all of those factors and kind of choose their own strategy basically. So almost kind of like a build a bear, where
Yeah.
you can choose your own. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. And then are you guys also thinking about potentially doing asset management for users, right? If they're not confident in their ability to choose the best projects. Have you guys thought about that?
That's a great question. I haven't personally thought about that too much because we're really focused on trying to make sure that we can provide this as like an infrastructure type of asset class. So we want Savvy to be something that people can build onto. I haven't like people have asked us if we wanted to manage people's money or people's crypto for them. I think to answer that question properly, it would take a lot of uh, probably like just a lot of you know for a lot of risk management for us to kind of figure out first. And from a legality perspective, what kind of licenses we would have to hold, because managing money for people is definitely a regulated field, and rightfully so. So I right now I don't think we would be capable of doing that in a compliant way, even though we have the people that can definitely do that. You know what I mean? So right now I don't think we're built for that, but at one point it could be something we might approach.
Yeah, yeah, very cool. It makes sense, right? You do see some of those asset management projects that are coming out, right? Which is going to be kind of essential for mass adoption, right? People are going to look at it, and you're familiar work with JP Morgan. Some people just want to give you their money and
For
say,
sure.
"Hey, make this money grow." You know what I mean? But
Yeah, totally.
um, so it's just cool to kind of get kind of the direction of you guys are really just allowing people to manage their own money and not have to worry about like the repaying the debt and stuff like that, which is cool. And so
Yeah,
then
totally.
on top of that, right? So they can also just deposit the money, and if they don't take a loan against, they're just earning interest just by using the project, right?
Yeah. So if they do nothing, like they don't want to take out any kind of loan against their crypto, they're just passively earning yield because we're doing all the harvesting and compounding for them with our partner. So it's like a super easy set it and forget it type of experience if they don't want to do any of that. So yeah, we totally do that.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's kind of get into the tokenomics, and then we'll talk about like the treasury and the and the
Sure.
and the percentages and all that different stuff. One thing I do want to talk about first is in regards to tokenomics is looking through the white paper. You guys say there's going to be 10 million total of your
Mhm.
tokens. But if you actually look through your tokenomics portion, it adds up to 12.25 million tokens.
It does.
And the percentages, yeah, break down to 122.5%. Um, so I'm not sure.
That might be a clerical error. No, there's 10. Let me look that up actually. Might be a great catch. Thank you for pointing that out. Do you recall where that was? Because I'm literally
Yeah,
pulling up
I'm
the
on
white
your
paper right now.
Savvy token distribution. You got 37.5% towards
Hmm.
liquidity mining,
Yep.
21.5% to the fair launch,
Hmm.
15.5 for the, oh, never mind.
That
That's where the
that's it.
mistake is. The
Sorry, I
15.5 and 6% are the 21.5%. Never mind.
so yeah, no worries.
Yeah, LG and liquidity bootstrapping are part of the fair launch. Sorry, I read
Yes,
that too
no, no
fast
problem.
when I was doing the math. That adds up. Okay.
It's okay. No problem.
All
No
right.
problem. Maybe you
Yeah.
know what? Honestly, though, maybe that's a sign for us to make it even easier for people so that we don't have that in the future. So I actually appreciate you, bringing this up because now that gives me something to think about and fix later on. So this is a good one. I appreciate
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Thank you.
I guess I just read it too fast, and then when I read it out loud, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, now it adds up. But okay, all right. So let's just talk through the tokenomics. However you want to approach that. You want to start with Savvy, the utility, the distribution, and then all the where everything's going and stuff like that.
Yeah. We can start off with the actual utility of the Savvy tokenomics. So, with our approach to the token system, we wanted to create a couple of really important things. Number one, we believe that the token is going to be an important utility for the protocol in a couple of different ways, and that utility will grow over time as well. So, first, it gives you access to govern the proposals on the protocol, which is pretty standard in DeFi and pretty standard in Web3. Nothing particularly special about that. However, where it does start becoming really special for Savvy and the Savvy utility token is in order for you to access the protocol itself to deposit and take out, you know, assets, take out to borrow against your crypto, you actually have to have Savvy in your wallet. And then it gets even better because if you have Savvy, you're able to deposit it into a staking model if you are a borrower, where you get a continuous form of staking, which effectively becomes kind of a soul-bound token, a non-tradable, non-transferable token that designates time spent in staking. So kind of like think of it as a stopwatch. So we named it, and because again, it goes hand in hand with voting, we named it Vote Escrow Savvy. Very similar to if you've ever used Platypus and how they have a continuous staking model. This is a very similar experience. So, like I said, if you're a borrower in the protocol and you're staking, you will be able to actually get a boosted yield on top of your yield strategy. So, Savvy actually provides an utility on top of these other things that I mentioned, being part of the DAO, being able to actually access the protocol. Not only those two, you actually get an additional yield when you're a borrower and you're staked and you claim it. So there's a financial incentive to actually be using in staking and actually borrowing. And to get even a little bit crazier, because we love to find reasons for people to want to vote, right? We think that's going to be really important in crypto and DeFi down the road. We incentivize the VE holders, those VE savvy holders, to eventually vote for liquidity emissions into the stable swap pools that we maintain. So that creates a very strong bond between liquidity providers and borrowers in our system, and they become intrinsically tied together from the perspective of yield and rewards. So Savvy as a token is going to have extremely strong utility to the protocol and to the users holding it for all the things I mentioned above. And so I'm going to pause there for a second. I know I threw a lot of things at you. I'm give you time to ask any questions you have on that. Oh,
Oop, sorry, I did not
yeah, no
unmute.
worries.
My apologies.
Okay, no worries.
Okay. So user deposits the base asset, they receive their token back, which they can use then to stake in the external yield strategies, right? And then when they're receiving that yield, right, they're receiving the yield that's coming from those strategies, not back in Savvy tokens.
So the
Or are they
yield that they
receiving their yield back in the form of Savvy tokens?
so when you deposit, let's say like AVAX or BTC into Savvy, you would be getting the same asset that you deposited.
Okay, very cool.
The additional boosted yield would come in Savvy for the VE Savvy holders. Yeah. So when they claim,
Okay.
they would get Savvy.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, cool.
Yep. So now, if you have questions on the Savvy on the token itself, I'm happy to continue explaining a little bit more on any thing that might have not made sense or was glossed over or something like that.
No, it makes sense. I'm just breaking down the chart, and I wanted to make sure that I was understanding what was being paid out from those yield pools. It's back in the base asset, which is good because you guys are obviously only have your hard capped on your tokens at 10 million, so it makes sense. And then so for you guys have basically the 90-10 split, right, where 10% goes back into the treasury. I know that happens as the yield is harvested. Is that regardless of whether it's paying off the debt or just being used? Is it always just basically a 10% performance fee for using the platform that's going back into the treasury?
Yeah, that's correct. So it's hard coded into the protocol, regardless of where the user actually borrows against their yield or not. They still will be subject to the 10%.
Okay. So for some people, right, what would their argument would be? Well, I could just go to this platform and deposit my money and receive the yield back, and not have to pay the 10% performance fee. So what's kind of the selling point there that makes it worth it for that 10% fee?
Great question. So if you go from a mathematics perspective, you have to constantly harvest. If you're not doing it, if you're doing it manually, you're gonna have to constantly harvest your crypto. Number one, you're gonna have to rebalance the weight of your yield because you're probably getting it in like a governance token or a DEX token. You'll be doing a lot of swaps yourself, so it's very time consuming. Assuming you don't have a very strong mathematically thought out formula on how to do this, and like if you go on Reddit and you go to like the our DeFi and you type in some people like search for pancake swap emissions, you'll see people that dive really deep into how to maximize their yield without auto harvesting because they didn't want to pay like 5, 6, 10% performance fee, and they end up spending a lot of time in gas, which effectively deteriorates their possible yield. So on top of the ease to use part, right? Because they don't have to like worry about it, it's getting auto compounded and harvested. It's typically optimized to provide better overall APR because the APRs you see already include that underlying fee. So if it's beating what you're getting from the platform itself, which often happens, it's just easier for people to go through a harvester. Now, on top of that, right, if we take that out of the equation, what we truly give you isn't even the ability to earn yield on your crypto. That's already been done before. What we're giving you is an ability to borrow against your crypto that's earning yield in a way that you cannot get liquidated. And what happens is it actually removes a huge problem for people, which is what we like to call opportunity cost, right? In finance or economics, people constantly make decisions. Even in, I mean, everything in life, you're constantly making decisions, either choice A or B or C, and you forego the other options that you don't take. Which, if we take it back to crypto, can become like, hey, you caught a rocket and then you went to the moon because you picked the right project, or you became a bag holder, quote unquote, because you picked the wrong project and you're stuck with it and then you hate yourself and all that stuff happens, and that happens because of opportunity costs that people make inherently based on their finances. We unlock that for you because again, you're 100% of your crypto is earning yield while you have up to 50% in liquid capital to be able to do things with, making you much more efficient, and also potentially making more money because a dollar today makes more money than a dollar tomorrow. So having that money up front is actually really, really important. And we do that. And that's really the reason why people would want to use us and why they wouldn't care about that performance fee, which only kicks in when they actually make money. So if the user isn't making any yield, neither is Savvy. So that's kind of the two reasons why I would say people would choose us despite maybe having a 10% fee.
Yeah, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And that is, that is a solid, if you want to call it a convenience fee, right? For being able to borrow against your own money, go use that money to make plays elsewhere while that money earns yield. It pays, you might even forget that you made that deposit, right? And eventually it pays back your debt. You come back and you've already made a bunch more money on top of it while you made money with all the money that you borrowed against yourself.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Like the use cases are also infinite because like I love JPEGs, right? So, I dabble with NFTs here and there. Um, but it's really risky, right? Because if you get into an NFT project that maybe might rug you or doesn't have a great use case or any use case for that matter, but you like it or the picture or you like because it's fun or something like that, right? You're basically saying like, hey, I believe in this really really speculative uh, new asset or art or whatever you call it, and maybe it'll become more valuable. Maybe I'll make a profit on it. Maybe I won't. Most go to zero, so the chances of you making profit are kind of low. But if I have self-repaying NFTs because my original, AVAX or ETH is earning yield and paying down my debt, I can, safely go and buy those NFTs without worrying that, I just basically set my crypto to, for a JPEG basically, right, and never get that crypto back if I want to sell. So that's like a great, easy use case to understand for people in this space.
Yeah, that's a great example. That's a great
Yeah.
example with the NFTs.
That's actually what I did last year.
Very nice. Well, I hope some of those NFTs actually made you some money too.
They did actually. Most did not,
good.
but some did.
Yeah, most don't. Yeah, and that's just kind of the way it is. but that's just NFTs were new. They were the hotness. People were launching projects left and right. And I mean, they still are, right? You see what's going on with Kanto NFTs right now. It's like you can't miss on those launches if you wanna look into that. But will that last forever, or are people gonna hop in and just have lost all that money? And I do like the kind of backstop of knowing like, yeah, this may go to zero, but eventually it's going to pay for itself. So
Totally. Me too.
yeah. Yeah, I like that. I like that idea a lot. I wish I had something like that a year ago. That's for sure. All
But you
right.
know what? It actually did exist a year ago, and most people didn't know about it.
Well, I
It's
sure
there.
didn't.
Yeah, there's a protocol on ETH called Alchemix, which inspired in large part of our protocol, the non-liquidating part specifically, and they were doing this on ETH, and that's kind of what spurred the idea. And then we improved on their concept and kind of added a couple other things and brought it to C Chain.
Yeah, very cool. I think I probably didn't know about it on ETH because I'd gotten wrecked on some GameFi, so I didn't have the money to stick around on ETH and worry about those gas fees. So I wasn't really paying too much attention outside of trying to accumulate some. So, but
Yeah, I'm not a fan of gas fees either, man. Not
who
cool.
is? Um, all right, so cool. So let's kind of transition to we understand the tokenomics, how the project works. Let's kind of talk a little bit about governance and your treasury. So I'd see, you're constantly getting, and I don't really want to harp too much on your team fees. I know people are always asking about your team fees. I think 10% of a team fee in a 6-year vest is kind of crazy for you guys, right? 6-year vest. That's like one of the longest vests I've ever seen in DeFi. Well, I guess I do have one question on that. So if the project doesn't gain, and it's not about the fees, 10% team fee, that's good, right? Who can argue with that? That's really good. But if this doesn't get the interest that you imagine, right, and that 10% worth of those tokens over that course of the 6-year vest isn't as profitable as you imagined, what are your plans for? How do you keep the team involved if it doesn't become as valuable as expected?
You might be the first person that's ever actually asked me that question. So that's actually a really good question. So a couple things. One, we have been entirely self-funded up to date. So I think inherently our team believes in this a lot, just because they've committed time, money, effort, sweat, emotion, etc., to building something that didn't exist on Avalanche, or in most places for that matter. And we did it in mostly silence, right? Because we were building and we've been paying out of pocket for things. So that's, I think, number one, we truly believe that we will succeed. So like having that um, kind of fuels us a lot, right? So we don't really think that we won't have that problem you mentioned, but in case we do, a couple of things that we have thought about, because we think that we've kind of got a couple of things covered here. So one, the tokenomics is designed to be distributed to the community, and our launch proposal is designed to seed liquidity into the protocol, but also to distribute it to a lot of people. We have a lot of research behind this in our thinking and going to market like this that has been proven empirically with data for other projects. Now, obviously, we can't compare what's happened in the past and guarantee that will happen in the future, but we have seen other projects emulate this success in a similar fashion, and they've done really well. And they've done that through various different times in crypto. So because of the fair nature of the launch, we do expect that we'll have some strong initial liquidity for the protocol, which will create a deep enough runway to pay people post launch, obviously, not only with a regular salary, but also with token compensation unlocked over a long period of time. Because we also expect to add more assets to our protocol, we do think we'll be bringing in liquidity from different places, which also will create demand for the Savvy governance token because it's going to be providing liquidity to more assets. So that inherently, I think, will also help us. But should we do poorly in the fair launch and we don't have the ability to actually, provide a very long runway, we are also because of our like time spent in crypto, we are also talking to DAOs like the Alliance DAO, for instance, which is a great accelerator, and we've interviewed with them. We are talking to Ava Labs and other protocols as well as VCs and DAOs in the space. So we're not being exclusionary in any way. We're definitely going to have a relationship with venture capital and hedge funds and DAOs as well. We're not excluding them. What we're saying is that our launch, like, and our protocol is strong enough to stand on its own legs that we can go straight to the community first without having to get private rounds or pre-seeds and stuff like that. But we will still be, raising for the protocol and liquidity, regardless of whether we go through a fair launch or take private rounds. Post launch, we'll still. By the way, we won't be taking private rounds or anything before the launch, so we're still entirely self-funded to the beginning of this. But yeah, we will be seeking funding post launch as well to make sure that we can actually build this long term. So we have a bunch of contingencies based on how much liquidity would go into the protocol, which I don't probably should be mentioning on this call. So we can talk in private, but we have a bunch of different scenarios on how we would distribute the liquidity post launch.
Yeah, very cool. And I personally am I'm a big fan of that. When I look at businesses, I'm kind of the person where it's go all in, right? Where you have no you have to succeed, right? And if you put all your own money into it, it's succeed or fail, do or die. And I think the best businesses in the world are built that way. So I like that approach. And it's when you put your own money into it, you have a whole different level of interest when you're not controlled by outside VC money who is trying to direct something a certain way. So I think that's super cool that you guys have self-funded this.
It's actually, the person that helped us kind of make sure that we were on the right path is also here with us. His name is IDM. He's a prolific giga brain researcher and definitely can talk to that amazing research at some point for you guys. So if your community wanted to learn more about like the deep breakdown, there's a lot that we can talk about too. Like I don't want to probably put people to sleep on this AMA, but yeah, we dived really deep for on chain and we saw 3 protocols that absolutely destroyed it with the fair launch. We're able to see their protocol adequately and are still actually, even despite the bear, are in profit for their early supporters. So it's really pretty wild to see.
Yeah, I'd be interested in that conversation at another time for sure. Just because I'm super interested in the research that's going behind building these projects. Like being able to talk to the projects and see what's built is great, right? But with only an hour of time, I don't really get to understand everything that went into it and the science behind it. And that is something that I would love to get on another call and talk about at some point. So very cool. All right, so let's kind of transition, like I said earlier, to kind of the treasury and the governance. You guys have 13% to the DAO for governance, 10% for the treasury, which will eventually be controlled by the DAO, and then 3% for the ecosystem development, right? So 26% total will eventually be controlled by the DAO for governance and growth. So really, my question is there. Well, one, I think that's a good chunk that can really help your project grow and do the right things, all right, without having to worry about getting dumped into oblivion per se. But what is the overall approach that you guys are looking at for governance? What is your dream of how governance for the protocol is going to look, and what kind of control the DAO will have?
Well, that is a question that I actually love talking about inside the team quite often because I'm really passionate about DAOs. I think when DeFi, when Web3 and crypto reach a new level of adoption, I think on-chain governance and generally governance will play a huge role and even a bigger role than it does today. So for the protocol, how do we see it working? Well, it would be a lie if I told you that we've already figured it all out because I think the purpose of having a DAO is inherently decentralizing that decision-making process and coming to it together. But as the current stewards of the protocol, the way that we're looking at it is in a very kind of adaptable fashion, right? So we are starting off with allowing people to vote on some smaller things, like how to cap a strategy, like for instance, the minimums, the maximums for deposits, or I mean, for deposits in particular, like creating a debt ceiling, things like that. Voting on new asset classes, potentially post launch, multi-chain things like that. Long term, we would like to deepen the governance to include a much more mature and sophisticated approach, um, that is going to allow us to work with real world assets and have a governance structure that's mostly on chain instead of using kind of things like this, maybe somewhat decentralized or decentralized enough today. But I would love to see governance be fully on chain, for Savvy at one point soon, and we are working towards that structure. So in the beginning, it'll be something simple, like people can propose and people can delegate, certain people to propose. Snapshot will be used, etc. But long term, we would like to set up a very mature kind of structure, something maybe similar to how MakerDAO has created sub DAOs. Would be like my dream, you know.
Yeah, yeah, very cool. I was going to ask, well, what you know governance models have you seen that you guys really like, and you kind of answered it right there with MakerDAO, which I think is one of the closest, right, that we've gotten so far to how fully on chain governance might work. And there's other ones like I do like the makeup of like the Spartan Council, for example, but I don't think that's the fully matured version of what people are really hoping for, with decentralized on-chain governance. So that's a good outlook that you guys are going for. Um, Very cool. All right, so appreciate you breaking that down. So then the next question I kind of have is, so you guys are being built on AVAX, and I personally think that AVAX doesn't get the love that it deserves. Obviously, you guys have been building on this for a while. Um, and then, which I don't understand why AVAX doesn't get the love it deserves. It's currently number 3 in cumulative volume. And I know Arbitrum is like making moves and stuff like that. But do you guys have plans to potentially move to other chains, or what are you seeing on AVAX that is currently very promising for your project to continue on AVAX?
Well, we definitely see AVAX as a great chain to build on because of the speed, security, the technology itself is really, really strong and very mature. It just works. On top of that, the composable nature of Avalanche really makes it interesting because we would be able to utilize things like subnets to create DApp specific or industry specific use cases, which would allow us to create essentially a very unique type of blockchain product that can integrate into real world assets or TradFi. And it's really compelling because a lot of these things that can happen today on Avalanche, other chains have to have layer twos created for that to even be a realistic possibility. So this is really cool that here this is not an issue. So it's a great chain. It's just really fast. Now, having said that, though, we are not any kind of maxis. We do see us working across multitude of different chains at some point, but right now we want to make sure that we do a great job here on Avalanche before we try to consider other things. So for the foreseeable future, we don't see us going anywhere yet. And I think Avalanche is definitely going to have a strong come up based on just all the news that's coming out and all the partnerships that are being created with Ava Labs and the Avalanche ecosystem. So yeah, we're pretty excited.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think that AVAX is about to have their kind of recent Polygon moment where people kind of forgot about them in a lot of ways. But there is a ton of stuff being done there. It's just not the new shiny thing right now. Um, Even though that's like I said, that's kind of disrespectful to all the things that are going on AVAX, and that's a chain I really like. So very cool. So let's talk a little bit about what you guys are kind of doing for your auditing and security, and what's kind of your approach there.
So we actually had a really interesting experience with audits. We spoke to probably like 20 auditors in the space. We liked a few of them a lot, and we ultimately went with Halborn, which is a really big player in the space, and they've audited. like blue chip projects. Like Avalanche itself has been audited by them. They've audited Bored Ape, Yacht Club, and Solana, and a bunch of other things. Or actually, not Solana, projects on Solana. So there's been a lot of things that they've done, and they're really a strong security expert in the space. We just completed the audit with them. We actually received the initial report today, so it's going through Q&A, and we hope to release that really soon to the public with the full breakdown for everything. We had a really, really strong audit. Now, we will be doing a second audit post launch. So I don't want to say, you definitely want to be safety conscious. So even though we had a great audit, doesn't mean that something can't happen. So we'll still be creating opportunity for others to make sure that the second audit is really strong. So we'll be probably using something more like a crowdsource platform. So like big fans of Code for Arena, for example. So maybe something like that would be our second auditor, where we create a public campaign, almost kind of like a bug bounty of sorts, and people can do a public audit on us after. So yeah, we're super security conscious on that, and pretty excited right now about the outcome that we've had so far.
Yeah, cool. That's what I was going to ask if you guys were looking at, kind of a bug bounty thing, because those things have had, you know, prolific, results for projects. And I've seen them, where they do the bug bounties, and it just really it speeds up the ability of a project to react and launch and do business properly. And having white hat hackers, come at attack your project and try to break it from the outside is huge.
Exactly.
Because
Yeah.
when you do just a typical audit, people will be like, oh, well, you only had the one audit, and it's like that's just a couple people. But the fact that you guys are already planning on that is cool.
Thank you. Totally. I mean, we actually, if you, I don't remember the day that we sent this out, but we had a really great conversation with one auditor that we didn't use, but we really liked them a lot. OX Macro is a really great auditor that we feel strongly about and think they do a great job in the space. There's a couple things that we really liked about them. One, they gave us this pre-audit checklist, which, by the way, highly recommend that in your research for future projects. Like me personally, I would like to see a project do a pre-audit checklist and actually present that to people, or like have it somewhere that you can find, because it really speaks to the level of preparation that project and those developers are taking. And that was really cool because they helped us really kind of formalize it based on this standard that they have. And that we're really grateful for that. And then we learned that they have this cool kind of academy where people that want to become auditors can kind of apply and get trained to become auditors. So it's pretty cool. And I just wanted to kind of do a soft show for them because I thought that was pretty awesome, actually. So yeah, we like them a lot, and they're pretty helpful, even though we never hired them.
Yeah, I mean that's cool. They went to extreme lengths even for not getting hired, which is cool. I'd love to see that checklist or talk to the people with the checklist, because I'm not sure if you're authorized to
Totally.
just be putting their checklist out there.
No,
Um,
well, it is. I believe it's public. They actually they do share that with people, so you can find it, or I can find it for you later offline.
okay, sounds good. I appreciate that. Um, and then kind of okay, so you kind of talked earlier about like potential partnerships after, so I'll kind of skip that since you've already covered that. And then my last question really is, I know you guys had to postpone the fair launch, so what are you guys kind of looking at now, expectation wise? I'm not asking you to give a hard date. I know you guys got a lot that you're working on there, but
Thank you. Well, I think it'll be really soon. We actually don't anticipate a crazy long delay. The only reason we had to delay was because our third party partner unfortunately had a delay, and that was out of our hands. So we were ready to go, but we are working on a new date, and we think it'll be early Q1. So I don't believe people will be waiting too much longer. And I would love to give an answer today, but I don't think I have it right this very moment.
yeah, it makes sense. I'll be paying attention for the announcement. I mean, you send me stuff all the time, so I'm constantly hopping into your little chats when I can. So I'm paying attention for sure.
Thank
Um,
you. Have you tried our testnet yet?
I have not.
Okay, we need to fix that.
Yeah, we do. I try to balance my time between my in real life job, which is obviously very time consuming, and being able to participate, because being able to interview projects, right? They're like, oh, check out the test net, and I do a couple minutes on it, as much as I can. But I would like to test your guys out, because I like the idea of an auto repaying loan for me that's not on ETH. So that seems super helpful for what I want to do. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Awesome.
I'd love to do the test net so I could provide some feedback, some honest
Please.
feedback.
Yeah, totally.
And then actually, when people ask me about it in the server, be able to say, hey, this is how it works, right? And not just from the interview. So yeah, I'd love to do that. All right. Well, I think that kind of covers the questions that I had. I think we understand the protocol pretty well, and everything that you guys are trying to do. If there's anyone in the audience that wants to ask a question, we still got a few minutes here. You can raise your hand. If not, then I'll turn it over to you, Roman. You can give your kind of final spiel on everything, your last little message. All right. Looks like it's over to you, Roman.
Great. Well, again, I want to say thank you for doing these AMAs. I love having technical conversations too. So like next time, if you're hosting a space or anything like that, please send me a link or a shout. I'll be happy to jump in. Love talking crypto 24/7. Honestly, so this is fun for me. And the last thing I wanted to leave people with is, this is a protocol that's designed to make crypto easier to use and understand. So sometimes it can be really confusing because, to be honest, what we're doing here in DeFi is kind of at the edge of finance and technology today. And it's combining everything people don't know about tech and everything they don't know about money together. So we would love to make that easier for people, but sometimes there's an education barrier. And for something like Savvy as well, it could be a potential hindrance. So I wanted to just, I guess, maybe leave it with one easy to understand example of how this might work. And my favorite example is using my dear imaginary friend named Christine, who happens to have 10,000 in USD in her wallet and decides that she wants to leverage it using Savvy. So she decides to use some yield strategy that she heard about in one of your cool Discord rooms, right? And we happen to have built on top of, yay. So she goes into Savvy and she deposits her 10,000 in USDC as collateral. And now she can borrow up to 5,000 in Savvy USD. And this allows her to utilize her credit line however she wants. So from there, Christine can go buy a JPEG NFT. She can go liquid stake. She can even trade it for other crypto, or she can go off of crypto and go to fiat. It doesn't matter. So we allowed Christine to do all of these cool things because her original crypto is busy working in DeFi, earning yield, being compounded, and paying down her loan for her. So in effect, Christine became really efficient because she has $10,000 working to pay down debt, and she has 5,000 in capital today that she can use however she feels. And in a nutshell, we just made Christine really, really efficient and effectively made her behave kind of like a billionaire does.
Yeah, very cool. Great example. Oh, and then with that, sorry, I meant to ask this earlier. I kind of glanced over it. What is the total that someone can borrow against the amount they deposit?
So we actually allow up to 50% of your deposited collateral to be borrowed against, if the strategy has available room. Because I mentioned earlier, every deposit strategy will have a limit to how much can be deposited, which inherently creates a limit to how much that particular strategy can be used to borrow against. But at an individual level, your deposit allows you to borrow up to 50%.
Okay, very cool. So then that $5,000 is being repaid, and the other $5,000 is also earning interest while that's being repaid. Okay.
10 grand's actually earning interest, not five.
Yeah,
the whole 10.
The full 10, but the 90% of that, half of it is being used to repay the loan until it's repaid. Correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, I really appreciate you coming on, Roman. I know we've been kind of connected for a little while. I'm glad we were finally able to get this on the books. This is great. I really like your project. And I'm excited for the fair launch and to see how this plays out, and looking forward to getting it on the test net. And I just really appreciate your time. Yeah.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
I would love for you to actually stop by. We're gonna have a really cool, kind of probably a little bit more technical type of chat with Ava Labs and Layer Zero about BTC.B, which is a permissionless Bitcoin on Avalanche and actually on any chain because it's Omni chain. So it's really cool. We're gonna have that on Monday. So we're about to start actually tweeting about it over the weekend and stuff. I'd love to invite you to kind of hang out with us there
Oh,
because
that would be
we'll be
awesome.
talking shop.
Yeah, I really appreciate the invite. Just send me the information, and I will do my best to be there. At some point,
Awesome.
and I'll be able to be there for some of it, regardless. I'll make time for that. Don't worry.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
So yeah, I really appreciate the invite. So, all right. Well, I guess with that, I'll go ahead and close this out. So,
thanks again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in. Grateful for your time and support. Blessed to be able to spend this time with you and our guests. If you're hearing this now on YouTube for the first time, do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button to help us expand our reach. We got a lot more coming for you. Once again, I'm Relentless from DeFi Raiders, and we'll see you next time.